All right, guys, so in the previous video, you guys might have seen me spin out like an idiot into turn 10 at Homestead Miami Speedway. And guys, I gotta say, thank you so much. I received so many comments, so many personal messages and advice and helpful tips and stuff like that. And I really, really appreciate it, man. So based on all the questions that I got and everything, I feel that, I should make a little bit of a deeper explanation and maybe try to dive a little bit into the data. One of the amazing things about these Corvettes and some other GM products is you get a built-in PDR, which is a performance data recorder, and which is made by Cosworth, and it data logs many things. And if you guys seen a lot of videos of the onboard camera with overlays and stuff like that, well, that is that particular system. Now, that system, like I said, is made by Cosworth, and so you can use Cosworth software to go deeper into that data. So I'm going to do an attempt, a very amateur attempt. I'm probably going to butcher this, okay? But let's dive into some of the stuff, some of the data that I have. All right, guys, so before we dive into all this cool stuff, looking here, all these little squiggly lines here, I have to give a huge thanks to Sean Finnegan, aka HiPo Driver. I'll leave a link down to his website down in the description. Go check it out. This guy is the go-to guru or information source for the Cosworth PDR data and how to set it up and how to use it if you want to go deeper than just the GM, user-friendly toolbox version. Okay, so this is toolbox, and the same files that you get from toolbox, so all your track runs and stuff like that, all this data, okay, you can also use in Cosworth Pi. Just understand that Cosworth Pi is used by professional race teams. I'm assuming that Cosworth, really expects you to be a professional to be able to use this. And I'm somebody who's familiar with many logging systems and standalone ECUs and all kinds of stuff like that, open source stuff as well from my Evo days. But I had a really hard time figuring this out. Okay, but it was thanks to Sean that he helped me. Not only he helped me analyze, he took my data, he analyzed it, he gave me his input, which is what I'm going to be sharing here with you guys. But also, he has, like I said, all these informative videos and stuff like that. So, go check it out. Very useful stuff. We're going to look at, Sean's analysis as to what happened, using my data, using my Cosworth data, okay, from the PDR, onboard PDR, on the spinout, okay. So this is the track. This is turn 10. This is the grass where I went into. Okay, and what we have loaded here. By the way, everything that we're gonna be looking at here is gonna be in the same spot. Okay, we're comparing a lap, my best lap from the stock tires, which is here in orange. Okay, and the lap where I spun out, on the Nankangs on the 19-inch tires. So first thing that is dead obvious, and I had already know this, that on this lap, this a run where I spun out, I took too shallow of a line. Okay, I passed this little car here, a Rush SR or something like that that I passed over here, and instead of being patient and staying behind him or passing him quickly and then quickly getting over to the right, I kind of stayed in the middle of the track, and that led me into taking a very shallow line. Now, I will say that this orange line is still on the shallow side. Okay, I need to try to work on staying out here a little bit longer and then taking more of a dive. Okay, but I'll have to work on that in the future. In this line, not only I took a more shallow line, but I also took more curb. Okay, a lot of people in the comments and stuff like that on my previous video speculated or said that I spun out because I took too much curb, but that turns out not to be true, and I'll show you guys why. So now let's go to this next screenshot. So now here again, we're looking at the same spot. This is the stock tire lap, and this is the Nankang lap. Okay, same exact spot. Here we're looking at lateral acceleration and yaw rate. So yaw rate, is the rate at which the car is yawing, or the back end is starting to come out. Okay, so as you can see, before I touched the curb and before the car downshifted, that was another thing that people were saying, that as soon as the car downshifted, that started the spin off. But before, this white line sets up the marker point. This blue line is yaw. And as you can see, yaw is starting to go up, meaning the car is already starting the tail is already starting to come out before I touched all this. And at some point, it just takes off. And that's when the ass really turns completely around. Okay. So definitely it wasn't because I took too much curb. Okay. And it definitely wasn't because the car downshifted at that spot. The car was simply already starting to yaw, okay, before that happened. One of the critical mistakes that I had made, and I had already recognized this as well, is I had no accelerator. So I had no accelerator and I had no brake. I mean, you have no reason to have brake in that spot, okay, but what I'm learning with the mid-engine layout is that I should have some maintenance throttle, even if it's a little bit. Here I didn't have a lot. You can barely see it there in the green. I had a very teeny amount of maintenance throttle, okay, and what I'm learning is that that's gonna help settle the back of the car, okay. So I had no throttle, no brake, okay, so definitely it was just too shallow of a line and no throttle. Now I had also speculated that possibly I had asked for more steering input, and it doesn't seem to be the case because at this spot, same spot where the car's already starting to yaw, I had basically the same steering angle. So it doesn't seem to have been because of steering angle either. Now we're looking at tire temps and tire pressures. And I don't think the pressure is what matters the most here, okay? But it does look like the Nankangs, I didn't get them really up to 150, 160 degrees, okay, whereas where I would want to see them, okay. So they were lower than that. Now, unfortunately, the car does not display tire temperatures. It just tells you if they're cool, normal, or warm. In my display, it did say warm, so I'm not really sure where here it determines that the tires are warm or not. I wish that we could see live temperature. And then finally, there was a lot of people that were speculating about the e-diff. There was a lot of comments about the e-diff. I'm not sure what the conspiracy theory is here with the e-diff, but unfortunately, I can't prove or disprove anything. There's no particular channel that I've been able to find that shows what the e-diff is doing. Okay, but look, guys, electronic differentials, electronic limited slip differentials have been around for a long time. I mean, Mitsubishi has had them in the Evos since the early 90s, okay? And then the Evos actually have two of them. Not all Evos have both of them, but for the most part, most Evos around the world have an electronic center differential and an electronic rear differential, which Mitsubishi calls ACD or active center differential. And then the rear, they call it AYC or active yaw control. And really, all it is a hydraulically controlled clutch pack. Okay, so yes, the computer is looking at wheel speeds and steering angles and throttle positions and things like that to determine how much or how little and how fast or how slow to release and or lock up the clutch pack. Okay, so the car basically has an open differential until the hydraulic pump starts to close up these clutch packs. So this technology has been around for a long time. I don't think that GM is doing anything crazy magically special here. Unfortunately, I have no data to prove this, so this is just me just talking shit here. But anyways, one thing that I can't show you here though is the difference in wheel speeds. Okay, this shows you what's happening. Okay, that the C8 really likes the stock tire stagger. Okay, so the specific height of the stock front and rear tires and the difference in between those two, that the all the systems are tuned around those particular parameters. Okay, and when you deviate from those, weird things can happen. The computer, the car is looking at the traction control and everything and all the systems in the car are looking at this to determine many things. And unfortunately, GM is not telling us everything, but I'm again assuming here that this affects ABS and traction control and shift logic and things like that. So here in the orange again, this is the stock tires, okay? And as you can see, these traces are nice and close, meaning that there's not a whole lot of difference in speed in between each individual wheel and tire. Okay, you do get some differences and stuff like that when you start to turn, when you start to accelerate and stuff like that. But for the most part, they stay pretty close. Okay, so this is the spot before I spun out. And as you can see, they're all really close, 99, 99, 98, 98. Okay, but the blue trays, the green trays with the Nankangs, okay, this is a 19-inch front and back setup with a 295/30/19 on the front and a 325/30/19 in the rear. So, much different rolling diameters than stock and a much different stagger front to back as well. Okay, so in here we can see, that the car does know this. Okay, you can see a much bigger difference here between all the wheel speeds and stuff like that. And at the same spot, we're 106, 108, 104, and 107. So definitely a bigger difference, and that difference carries pretty much throughout the whole trace. Okay, so just something to keep in mind. Another thing that I wanted to look at on this data, this is my best lap on the stock tires. Okay, and if you guys go back to the video, right here in this spot, I say that I'm getting ice mode. Okay, and this is what I can see of how the ice mode shows up on the data. Okay, so let's zoom in right here in the spot, right over here. So as we can see here on this right hand side up here, this is brake. So the red trace is brake. Okay, we have accelerator, we have yaw rate, we have RPM, we have diff lock, which we'll go over it in a little bit, and decel G. Okay, now what's odd about this is, as you notice, this trace is going up, which meaning that my brake pressure is increasing, but in the graphical in the video here, it shows it maxed out. So this doesn't really relate to what's really happening. Now here it says brake percentage, but I believe this is still just pedal travel. Okay, this is not giving us like total percentage or pressure or anything like that. Okay, now what's peculiar here is how the trace just flattens. So all of a sudden is increasing, it's increasing, it's increasing, and then it flattens. And that is exactly how it feels in real life. You get a stiff pedal that just will not move. I don't care how good you are. Maybe if you okay, maybe if you're a professional race car driver, but I find it hard to believe that anybody can hold a pedal that steady for that long of a time. Okay. So what this feels like is you just get a very hard pedal, and the car seems like it's not really slowing down at the rate that you would wish based on how much pressure you're giving it. But we can see here in the decel G, which is this orange graph, okay, that decel G is it continues to increase. Okay, it continues to increase. It's not increasing by a ton, but it is increasing. Okay, and then we could also see here in the trace, it's kind of jumping up and down a little bit, but for the most part, it is, you are generating braking G's. Okay, but in the moment it feels like the car is just not slowing down. Okay, so I found this very, very interesting, a very, very cool part about being able to dive into this kind of data. Another cool thing about this software is we can have multiple laps loaded all at once. So this lap that I'm loading right now, this is the spin out lap. Okay, so let me get my bearings as to where I'm at. Okay, so yeah, this is where I spun out. All right, so I'm coming into the turn now. What I want to look at here is the speculation about the E-dip and stuff like that. And again, I don't have any proof of anything. This channel here, this purple channel here, as we can see, is called diff locked. Okay, so if we go back a little bit, we go through a turn. So here we're coming into the braking zone. Okay, so we're coming into the braking zone, and this shows the diff is locked, which I believe 1 means open and 0 means locked. And as you're turning and I'm trying to give accelerator, you can see that the differential is starting to do stuff. Okay, and it continues to do it until the speed stabilizes, and once everything kind of stabilizes, then the diff is just open. Now again, this is all speculation. Now I'm coming here into the turn. Green is my accelerator, so as you can see, I let off the accelerator. I start to apply the brake, coming in here, and then at this point is where things start to go wrong. Okay, But as you can see, the diff is not doing anything. So the diff is just, I'm not sure again if this is, I'm assuming this is open, because why would it be locked during a straight line acceleration throughout this whole area? Okay. But okay, if it's locked or open, doesn't really matter. It's not doing anything. It's doing whatever it's doing. And then once you're in the full spin out, is when it's starting to try to do things. And then it's starting to do things because if you notice here, I give it accelerator. So let me zoom in here. So as soon as I ask for accelerator is when the diff starts to do something, okay? And I get off the accelerator and the diff stops doing stuff. Let me zoom out a little bit here. And that trend kind of continues. So then I ask for accelerator and the diff starts to do stuff and so on, okay? So unfortunately, like I said, there's no specific E-diff channel, okay, that we can see here. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It's just not available to, the channels that I have. I have asked Sean to see if maybe he can look into it. But he's a busy guy. I'm sure this is not what he just wants to do in his spare time all the time. So, if you guys want to dig at it, have at it. I give you a lot of the tools that you need to really start digging into it. If you're really curious and maybe you think you can figure it out, then hey, please let me know. Tag me in it. You know what I mean? Share the video with me. I would also like to know. I don't see it, guys. I don't think that this electronic diff is something magical. Again, this technology has been around, for a long, long time. And if it works the way I understand it works, then yeah, I don't see how the diff itself can make you just magically spin out. All right, guys. Well, hopefully you found that informative. I know I certainly did. I learned a ton, and I'm going to definitely try to use the software a bit more to try to improve my own driving. You know what I mean? One thing is the stuff that you feel and how you perceive things while you're on track. And another thing is data. The data doesn't lie, and there's a lot of things that you can use in there to compare lines, see if you were actually faster. Maybe you felt you were faster, but you're not sure why. It's a good way to find out really the nitty gritty as to what the car is doing. You can look at, it even has like individual ride height sensors and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff in there. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy the video, guys. And on the next video, hopefully I'll be coming at you from Sebring with the new car. Man, I'm super excited for that. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.